Every few centuries, humanity looks into the mirror of history and asks one question. Did someone see this coming? They call him the Prophet of Doom, a man who, 500 years ago, sat beneath the flickering glow of candlelight and wrote in riddles that have haunted the world ever since. Michel de Nostredame or Nostradamus, a French astrologer, physician, and visionary who, in 1555, published a strange book of cryptic poems called Les Prophecies. Inside it, hundreds of quatrains. Short, four-line verses written in a blend of Latin, French, Greek, and riddles so mysterious, scholars still argue over them today. And yet, time after time, those verses seem to echo across history. Wars, revolutions, disasters, even the rise of tyrants. When the twin brothers of iron fall from the sky, the great new city will burn. Many believe this described the September 11th attacks. Others point to predictions of plagues, fire, and famine that seem to match the chaos of our modern age. And now, his words point to something else. A year, a time that many believe could change everything. The year, 2026. What did Nostradamus really foresee about this year? Could the cryptic prophecies written half a millennium ago reveal what lies ahead for humanity? Or are we simply searching for patterns in chaos, seeing meaning in words that were never meant to warn us? In this episode, we uncover the real predictions of Nostradamus for 2026, decoded, analyzed, and brought face-to-face with today's world. Because whether you believe in prophecy or not, one truth remains unshakable. History has a strange way of repeating itself. To understand how Nostradamus crafted his mysterious predictions, we must step into his world, the Renaissance, an age caught between magic and reason. Science was still young, and astrology was seen as the key to unlocking divine patterns. Nostradamus believed that the cosmos was not chaos, but a vast clockwork mechanism where every movement of a star or planet echoed through the destiny of mankind. He combined ancient astrological charts with his own deep intuition, blending observation with what he called divine inspiration. Yet he never claimed to be a prophet in the religious sense. He called himself a humble interpreter of time. He would gaze into a bowl of water or flame for hours until visions came to him. Images of war, crowns, fire, and oceans rising. Then, in a trance-like state, he would write in verse, concealing the message beneath layers of metaphor and symbolism. His choice of obscure words and mixed languages was deliberate. He knew that plain speech could lead to accusations of heresy. France was dangerous for thinkers who questioned fate, and Nostradamus had already faced suspicion from the church. So he hid his warnings in riddles, as if to protect the future from the dangers of the present. Each quatrain was like a locked door, its meaning revealed only when history provided the key. That's why his prophecies seem timeless. Every era sees its own reflection in them. But among all his cryptic verses, some appear disturbingly close to our own world. Words that speak of floods and fire, of leaders falling, of the earth trembling under mankind's ambition. And when scholars trace the dates and astrological alignments, many point toward 1 year, 2026, as a convergence point. They believe Nostradamus foresaw a global transformation, a year when humanity would stand on the edge of destruction or rebirth. Whether through war, nature, or technology, the balance of the world, he hinted, would shift. But before we interpret those predictions, we must first see what they were. The verses that, even now, make the world wonder if Nostradamus somehow saw the 21st century unfold before his eyes. The quatrains that scholars connect to the year 2026 speak of upheaval, of a world trembling under forces both human and natural. Interpreters believe that Nostradamus foresaw this year as one of great shifts when power, nature, and technology collide to reshape human destiny. He wrote of a great empire moved by the sea, words that many see as a warning of new alliances, migrations, or even geopolitical upheavals triggered by climate change. Some believe it hints at rising oceans swallowing coastal nations, forcing entire populations to move and redrawing the map of the modern world. Others see it as a metaphor for political tides, where dominance shifts from one global power to another. 2026, they say, may witness the birth of a new global order, perhaps the rise of nations long overshadowed or the fall of those who once ruled. In another verse, Nostradamus wrote of blood on the land of 7 hills, long associated with Rome, suggesting unrest or crisis within Europe, possibly tied to politics, economy, or ideology. Many analysts believe this could point to internal conflicts within the European Union or the collapse of old alliances. Meanwhile, in the East, his lines about the great lion and the eagle in conflict are often interpreted as a struggle between world powers, symbols that some connect to nations like China, Russia, and the United States. The imagery evokes a world where tension reaches breaking point and the balance of authority is tested as never before. But Nostradamus did not limit his warnings to politics. He spoke also of nature's fury, of fire from the sky, the great heat upon the earth, and water rising, as if to devour. Many have linked these to accelerating climate change, extreme weather, and disasters that already haunt the modern age. 2026 could, according to some interpretations, be the year when the planet pushes back, storms more violent, droughts more severe, and natural forces reshaping the way we live. Economic upheaval too lingers between his lines. One verse mentions a golden age ending in iron and dust, a poetic warning of financial collapse or technological overreach. Analysts see it as a metaphor for a global economy driven by greed and digital power, where sudden shifts, perhaps in currency, energy, or technology, could shake the world's foundation. And yet, not all his visions are grim. He spoke of the age of discovery renewed, words that some interpret as breakthroughs in science, medicine, or artificial intelligence, advances that blur the boundary between human and machine, a time of both promise and peril, where humanity's reach into the future may outpace its wisdom. Finally, Nostradamus described a sign in the heavens of fire across the night sky, which interpreters have tied to celestial events, a comet, eclipse, or cosmic phenomenon that could mark 2026 as a year of awakening or warning. Whether these words predict disaster or transformation depends on how we choose to see them. For in the cryptic poetry of Nostradamus, every prophecy is a mirror. It reflects not only what the future might bring, but what humanity already fears and what it secretly hopes for. Among Nostradamus's hundreds of quatrains, a few stand out as chillingly relevant to the times we are entering. Scholars who have long studied his verses believe that several of these cryptic lines could be linked directly to the year 2026. Verses that speak of storms both earthly and divine, of rulers rising and falling, of signs in the sky that foretell change. One of the most discussed reads, "The great empire shall be moved by the sea. The earth shall tremble in its center." Some interpret this as a warning of massive floods or coastal upheaval, perhaps the consequence of melting ice and rising oceans. Others read it as a symbol of shifting global power, nations separated by oceans exchanging dominance, with the sea representing trade, influence, and migration. As our planet faces record temperatures and unprecedented displacement, this single line feels less like poetry and more like a mirror held up to our time. Another quatrain says, "The war will be born from the east, and fire will fall upon the west." To believers, this paints a haunting picture of conflict between Eastern and Western powers, political, economic, or even technological war. The fire could be literal, hinting at military escalation, or symbolic, representing cyber warfare, economic collapse, or digital chaos. In a world increasingly polarized between nations and ideologies, these words echo like a warning from across the centuries that he also wrote. "In the land of the great eagle, discord shall rise. The leader shall fall, and a new voice will be heard." Many associate the great eagle with the United States, whose national symbol bears the same wings. Interpreters suggest This could mean political unrest or a dramatic change in leadership. Perhaps a transition that divides the nation before bringing renewal. The new voice may not be a person but a movement, a generation rising from the shadows of disillusionment to demand something new. In yet another cryptic verse. Nostradamus describes fire from the sky lighting the new city. The image is eerie, some connect it to technological disasters, satellites, or even meteor showers, while others see it as a vision of humanity's obsession with progress. The new city could be symbolic of the modern digital world, our virtual empire built not from stone but from light. If so, fire from the sky might represent the collapse of systems we've come to depend on, satellites, communications, or even artificial intelligence turning against its makers. Then there are the celestial prophecies, the most mysterious of all. A comet shall blaze for 7 nights, and mankind will stare into the heavens. Astronomers note that 2026 is indeed predicted to bring rare cosmic alignments and possibly the return of long-period comets. For Nostradamus, the heavens were not distant or decorative. They were the handwriting of fate itself. He saw celestial events as messages from the divine, warnings that the cycle of time was about to shift. Perhaps the most haunting of his words says, "From the ashes of ruin shall rise a new world, but only when man learns to see through his own illusion." Some scholars interpret this as a message of hope rather than doom, a sign that beyond destruction lies awakening, that humanity, pushed to its limits by chaos, may finally realize that the enemy is not the stars nor destiny, but its own blindness and pride. When we read these verses today, the temptation is to see prophecy as certainty. But Nostradamus never claimed to predict the future precisely. He offered possibilities, glimpses, warnings written in symbols. The power of his words lies not in their exactness, but in their resonance. They compel us to question, to look at the path we're walking and ask whether the disasters he saw were inevitable or preventable. The quatrains that seem to echo through 2026 are not just predictions, they are reflections. Throughout his writings, Nostradamus warned not only of war and power, but also of nature's revolt, the earth itself rising against human arrogance. He described fire on the Great Plains, the sea climbing to the walls of cities, and rains that last for 40 days, visions that once sounded poetic but now feel disturbingly familiar. Scholars who connect his work to 2026 believe this year marks a turning point in the planet's balance, when the natural world will remind humanity that it can no longer be ignored. Across his verses, he speaks of elements, fire, water, wind, and earth, as if they were living forces exacting justice upon mankind. The fire from the sky could once have meant war, but in our time, it evokes the inferno of wildfires consuming continents. The rising seas, once metaphorical, now swell with real consequence, devouring coasts from Miami to Mumbai. When Nostradamus wrote of the rivers that change course, perhaps he foresaw the droughts and floods that, in a single season, turn fertile ground into dust and dust into drowning land. In one quatrain, he writes, "At the world's edge, the heat shall grow, the harvest shall fail, and men shall curse the sun." To those who interpret his prophecies, this is a stark image of climate change, an age when rising temperatures would scorch the earth and force migrations unlike any before. The curse upon the sun could be symbolic of our own inventions, our industries and machines that trap heat in the air and poison the very skies that once guided his astrology. In 2026, global reports already warn of record heat, food shortages, and unpredictable storms. It's as if the ancient seer's words have come alive, not as mystical warnings, but as scientific reality. As the shadows of prophecy loom over the horizon of 2026, one truth emerges with clarity. The future is not written in stone. Nostradamus's quatrains, filled with fire, floods, and shifting powers, may tempt us to believe that doom is inevitable. But the final message of his work is one of choice, responsibility, and human agency. His verses remind us that even the most vivid warnings are not commands carved by fate. They are mirrors reflecting the consequences of our actions, and in those reflections lies both peril and possibility. The world that emerges from 2026, whether marred by chaos or shaped by renewal, depends on how humanity responds to the challenges that stand before it. Each decision, from the way we treat the environment to the leaders we follow, from the technologies we embrace to the wisdom we cultivate, writes a line in the story of our collective destiny. Nostradamus' visions of conflict, natural disaster, and upheaval are not simply meant to frighten. They are intended to awaken awareness. The fires, floods, and storms are symbols, but their meaning is universal. Humanity must pay attention, must act with foresight, and must recognize the delicate balance upon which civilization rests. Likewise, his glimpses of spiritual awakening and renewal suggest that even amid turmoil, there is hope. His quatrains hint that a deeper consciousness can arise from struggle, that clarity and wisdom are born not in comfort, but in the crucible of adversity. In other words, 2026 is a crossroads, a year when human choice may tip the balance toward destruction or toward enlightenment. The final lesson is both humbling and empowering. Nostradamus asks us to confront uncertainty, to prepare for the worst, but also to cultivate resilience, compassion, and foresight. The prophecies may speak of rulers falling, seas rising, and machines ruling, but they also point toward human capacity, the capacity to learn, to adapt, and to overcome. The future is not a distant inevitability. It is a living reality shaped by thought, intention, and action. And perhaps that is the most important prophecy of all, that humanity is not merely a passive witness to fate, but a co-author of the story that unfolds. As we look toward 2026, the echoes of Nostradamus are clear. History may repeat, disasters may come, and chaos may reign, but within every challenge lies the seed of transformation. The world is a canvas, and we hold the brush. The prophecies, cryptic and mysterious, remind us that the power to shape destiny has always been ours. Not in the stars, not in machines, not in omens, but in the choices we make, the awareness we cultivate, and the courage with which we face the unknown. The future, after all, is still ours to write.